The anime begins by showing the announcement of the 13th Imperial Prince. Although he is only a newborn, he possesses consciousness because he has reincarnated. Upon revealing his abilities, he realizes that he has an affinity with water, and that his rank is SS. The king decides to name him Noah Erat, and all the nobles are impressed by his talent at such a young age. 6 years after reincarnating, the protagonist has learned to clearly see his statistics, since his power comes from the number of subordinates he possesses. As for his level, it can increase infinitely, although for now he remains at level 1. The protagonist has several maids. Evelyn is one of them, and stands out for being elegant and beautiful, and she is in charge of attending to him at any time. She informs him about the arrival of the Crown Prince and the 4th Prince. The protagonist goes to see his brothers. Albert, the Crown Prince, gives him a sword as a gift. The protagonist senses a negative aura from it and sees the laments of those who once served Albert, but since it was a gift he could not refuse it, so he takes it carefully. Albert explains that it is the most powerful water magic sword in the Empire, called Leviathan. More than 120 people died trying to tame its power, but the protagonist was able to endure it because he has an SS affinity with water. Albert put him to the test, and since he survived holding it, he says that with time he will be able to use it. The protagonist is annoyed because he was put to the test, but he stays silent to avoid getting into trouble. At night, Zoe, one of the maids, seems unmotivated. When the protagonist asks her what is wrong, he realizes that she is like this because there was a flood in her hometown and her family is having a hard time. That is why she has been thinking about resigning to go be with them. The protagonist decides to give her mother a job so that she can feel more at ease. In addition, he provides her with a salary and lodging near the capital. He does this to prevent Zoe from having to work in a brothel and having her reputation tarnished. In addition to that, he asks his butler Dylan to go and buy all the land possible in Zoe's village in order to protect the affected families before someone else takes advantage of their situation. The problem is that the protagonist does not have enough resources for that, so he orders the sale of some land that was gifted to him in order to buy the other land and better help the village. The next day, the 4th Prince, named Henry, visits his brother to talk to him about the sword. After conducting a brief investigation, he discovered that the sword possesses a will of its own. It is said that it only obeys the one it recognizes as its master. Henry recommends not using it to avoid a tragedy. Later, the protagonist and his subordinates travel to the lands he wants to buy and realize the extent of the disaster. The houses are destroyed and the crops are rotting. In addition, the food that is usually distributed is in poor condition, but the people cannot complain about what they are given. The protagonist cannot believe that the Empire provides food of such poor quality. At that moment, the person in charge of that area appears. Geralt arrives to inspect the food. Upon seeing how bad it is, he congratulates his employees on their work. The protagonist, hidden under a hood, confronts him, asking whether he is keeping the money that is given to help in these cases. Geralt, seeing that it is a child, justifies his actions by mentioning that he has to gain something from what he is doing. The protagonist reminds him that he is committing a crime by enriching himself with aid meant for the victims, and that crime carries the death penalty. He also compares the sword to Geralt, since both abuse their power. Leviathan becomes angered and acts of its own will, appearing before the protagonist. He tries to take it, but it rejects him, showing that he is not worthy. However, the protagonist manages to wield it, showing it that there is someone stronger than it. After this, he decapitates Geralt for trying to attack him. Leviathan is not satisfied and acts on its own. The protagonist manages to stop it in time, although its attack creates an extremely deep pit, so he must be very careful when using such power. Shortly after, Lehen, the commander of the Knights of Dosso, arrives. Upon seeing what has happened, he rushes to apologize to the prince for the incident. The protagonist asks him to take care of Geralt's accomplices. In addition, he orders that more good quality food be prepared and that the portions be increased. On the other hand, Albert receives the report of what happened in Dosso. He is pleased to learn that his brother will be useful by being able to control the sword. The king summons his youngest son to thank him for the decision to sell the land he had given him and purchase the land in Dosso, since thanks to that they saved resources that would have been spent dealing with 2 catastrophes. He also learned that he managed to tame Leviathan and is interested in knowing what his current of power is. When the protagonist is evaluated, it is revealed that he now has an SSS affinity with water. Simply by taming the sword, his power has grown, and the king hopes to rely on his strength in the future.